Chapter XXXIX, aka 39 in Roman numerals. Thor's visit to Jotunheim. Thor's visit to Jotunheim, the giant's country. One day the god Thor with his servant Thialfi
Seriously, why are there so many lights?
set out on a journey to the giant's country. Thialfi was of all men the swiftest of foot. He bore Thor's wallet containing their provisions. When night came on, they found themselves in an immense forest and searched on all sides for a place where they might pass the night, and at last came to a very large hall with an entrance that took the whole breadth of one end of the building. Here they lay down to sleep, but towards midnight were alarmed by an earthquake which shook the whole edifice. Thor, rising up, called on his companions to seek with him a place of safety. On the right they found an adjoining chamber into which the others entered, but Thor remained at the doorway with his mallet in his hand, prepared to defend himself whatever might happen. A terrible groaning was heard during the night, and at dawn of day Thor went out and found lying near him a huge giant who slept and snored in the way that had alarmed them so. It is said that for once Thor was afraid to use his mallet, and as the giant soon waked up,
Where's your phone?
Thor contented himself with simply asking his
Where's your
name.
phone?
"My name is Skrymir," said the giant,
Where's your
"but
phone?
I need not ask thy name, for I know that thou art the god Thor. But what has become of my glove?" Thor then perceived
Wait, where's your
that
phone?
what they had taken overnight for a shawl was the giant's glove, and the chamber where his two companions had sought refuge was the thumb. Skrymir then proposed that they should travel in company, and Thor consenting, they sat down to eat their breakfast.
I'm asleep. Because I can't see what you're talking. Are you sleeping or not? Huh? Can I turn off the light? We're gonna sleep now. Or no? Huh? Or are you gonna sleep now?
Can you leave it on until I finish the story at least?
Okay, but where's your phone? I'll make sure you're not like texting. Where's your phone?
Wait, can you just give me, I'll tell you where my phone is. Like, can you just give me a couple minutes to finish the book, and then I'll be done with reading the book?
Fine.
They sat down to eat their breakfast, and when they had done, Skrymir packed all the provisions into one wallet, threw it over his shoulder and strode on before them, taking such tremendous strides that they were hard put to it to keep up with him. So they traveled the whole day, and at dusk Skrymir chose a place for them to pass the night in under a large oak tree. Skrymir then told them he would lie down to sleep. But take ye the wallet, he added, and prepare your supper. Skrymir soon fell asleep and began to snore strongly. But when Thor tried to open the wallet, he found the giant had tied it up so tight he could not untie a single knot. At last Thor became wroth, and grasping his mallet with both hands, he struck a furious blow on the giant's head. Skrymir, awakening, merely asked whether a leaf had not fallen on his head, and whether they had supped and were ready to go to sleep. Thor answered that they were just going to sleep, and so saying went and laid himself down under another tree. But sleep came not that night to Thor, and when Skrymir snored again so loud that the forest re-echoed with the noise, he arose and, grasping his mallet, launched it with such force at the giant's skull that it made a deep dent in it. Skrymir, awakening, cried out, "What's the matter? Are there any birds perched on this tree? I felt some moss from the branches fall on my head. How fares it with thee, Thor?" But Thor went away hastily, saying that he had just then awoke, and that as it was only midnight, there was still time for sleep. He, however, resolved that if he had an opportunity of striking a third blow, it should settle all matters between them. A little before daybreak, he perceived that Skrymir was again fast asleep. And again, grasping his mallet, he dashed it with such violence that it forced its way into the giant's skull up to the handle. But Skrymir sat up and, stroking his cheek, said, "An acorn fell on my head. What? Art thou awake, Thor? Methinks it is time for us to get up and dress ourselves. But you have not now a long way before you to the city called Utgard. I have heard you whispering to one another that I am not a man of small dimensions, but if you come to Utgard, you will see there many men much taller than I. Wherefore I advise you, when you come in there, not to make too much of yourselves. For the followers of Utgard, Loki, will not brook the boasting of such little fellows as you are. You must take the road that leads eastward. Mine lies northward, so we must part here. Hereupon he threw his wallet over his shoulders and turned away from them into the forest. And Thor had no wish to stop him or to ask for any more of his company. Thor and his companions proceeded on their way. Torrent's noon descried a city standing in the middle of a plain. It was so lofty that they were obliged to bend their necks quite back on their shoulders in order to see to the top of it. On arriving, they entered the city, and seeing a large palace before them, with the door wide open, they went in and found a number of men of prodigious stature sitting on benches in the hall. Going further, they came before the king, Utgard Loki, whom they saluted with great respect. The king, regarding them with a scornful smile, said, "If I do not mistake me, that stripling yonder must be the god Thor." Then, addressing himself to Thor, he said, "Perhaps thou mayst be more than thou appearest to be. What are the feats that thou and thy fellows deem yourselves skilled in? For no one is permitted to remain here who does not, in some feat or other, excel all other men." "The feat that I know," said Loki, "is to eat quicker than anyone else, and in this I am ready to give a proof against anyone here who may choose to compete with me." "That will indeed be a feat," said Utgard Loki. "If thou performest what thou promisest, and it shall be tried forthwith." He then ordered one of his men, who was sitting at the farther end of the bench, whose name was Loki, to come forward and try his skill with Loki. A trough filled with meat having been set on the hall floor, Loki placed himself at one end and Loki at the other, and each of them began to eat as fast as he could until they met in the middle of the trough. But it was found that Loki had only eaten the flesh, while his adversary had devoured both flesh and bone, and the trough to boot. All the company therefore adjudged that Loki was vanquished. Utgard Loki then asked what feat the young man who accompanied Thor could perform. Thialfi answered that he would run a race with anyone who might be matched against him. The king observed that skill in running was something to boast of, but if his youth would win the match, he must display great agility. He then arose and went with all who were present to a plain where they rose. There was running on and calling the yogi. Bade him run a match with Thialfi. In the first course, Hugi so much outstripped tricked his competitor that he turned back and met him not far from the starting place. Then they ran a second and a third time, but Thialfi met with no better success. Utgard Loki then asked Thor what feats he would choose to give proofs of that prowess for which he was so famous. Thor answered that he would try a drinking match with anyone. Utgard bade his cupbearer bring the large horn, which his followers were obliged to empty when they had trespassed in any way against the law of the feast. The cupbearer having presented it to Thor, Utgard Loki said, "Whoever is a good drinker will empty that horn at a single draught. Though most men make 2 of it, but the most puny drinker can do it in 3. Thor looked at the horn, which seemed of no extraordinary size, though somewhat long. However, as he was very thirsty, he set it to his lips, and without drawing breath, pulled as long and as deeply as he could, that he might not be obliged to make a second draught of it. But when he set the horn down and looked in, he could scarcely perceive that the liquor was diminished. After taking breath, Thor went to it again with all his might, but when he took the horn from his mouth, it seemed to him that he had drunk rather less than before. Although the horn could now be carried without spilling. "How now, Thor," said Utgard Loki, "thou must not spare thyself. If thou meanest to drain the horn at the 3rd draught, thou must pull deeply. And I must needs say that thou wilt not be called so mighty a man here as thou art at home if thou showest no greater prowess in other feats than methinks will be shown in this." Thor, full of wrath, again set the horn to his lips and did his best to empty it. But on looking in, found the liquor was only a little lower. So he resolved to make no further attempt, but gave back the horn to the cupbearer. "I now see plainly," said Utgard Loki, "that thou art not quite so stout as we thought thee. But wilt thou try any other feat? Though methinks thou art not likely to bear any prize away with thee hence." "What new trial hast thou to propose?" said Thor. "We have a very trifling game here," answered Utgard Loki, "which we exercise none but children. It consists in merely lifting my cat from the ground, nor should I have dared to mention such a feat to the great Thor, if I had not already observed that thou art by no means what we took thee for." As he finished speaking, a large gray cat sprang on the hall floor. Thor put his hand under the cat's belly and did his utmost to raise him from the floor, but the cat bending his neck, bending his back. And notwithstanding all Thor's efforts, only one of his feet lifted up, seeing which Thor made no further attempt. The trial has turned out, said Ludgard Loki, just as I imagined it would. The cat is large, but Thor is little in comparison to our men. Little as ye call me, answered Thor. Let me see who among you will come hither. Now I am in wrath, and wrestle with me. I see no one here, said Utgard Loki. Looking at the men sitting on the benches, who would not think it beneath him to wrestle with thee. Let somebody, however, call hither that old crone, my nurse Eli, and let Thor wrestle with her, if he will. She has thrown to the ground many a man not less strong than this Thor is. A toothless old woman then entered the hall and was told by Utgard Loki to take hold of Thor. The tale is shortly told. The more Thor tightened his hold on the crone, the firmer she stood. At length, after a very violent struggle, Thor began to lose his footing and was finally brought down upon one knee. Utgard Loki then told them to desist, adding that Thor had now no occasion to ask anyone else in the hall to wrestle with him, and it was also getting late, so he showed Thor and his companions to their seats, and they passed the night there in good cheer. The next morning, at break of day, Thor and his companions dressed themselves and prepared for their departure. Utgard Loki ordered a table to be set for them, on which there was no lack of victuals or drink. After the repast, Utgard Loki led them to the gate of the city, and on parting asked Thor how he thought his journey had turned out, and whether he had met with any men stronger than himself. Thor told him that he could not deny but that he had brought great shame on himself. And what grieves me most, he added, is that ye will call me a person of little worth. Nay, said Utgard Loki, aka Thanos, it behooves me to tell thee a truth. Now thou art out of the city, which so long as I live, and have my way, thou shalt never enter again. And by my troth, had I known beforehand that thou hadst so much strength in thee, and wouldst have brought me so near to the great mishap, I would not have suffered thee to enter this time. Know then that I have all along deceived thee by my illusions. Why are you afraid of the face of God? Deadly illusion.
Okay.
Close your eyes, your family knows you're here. One more soul to the call, it's all deadly illusion. Reality is merely an illusion. albeit a very persistent one. According to Albert Einstein, reality is merely an illusion, albeit a very persistent one. Deadly illusion. Close your eyes, your family knows you're here. Shot in the dark, came too late. It's over. Hayate does that. The way Sylvana Windrunner does that. It's over.
Okay.
The way Kai does that.
Can Kai come back to reality?
Mist illusions of shadow.
Kai, come back.
Thanos, aka
Come back, Kai, come back.
Utgard Loki, aka Deadly Illusion. Sephiroth style. Seph style. Black and gold. Black and silver usually more. Sephiroth's not really black and gold, is he? Well, he could be, but usually it's black and silver.
Are we sleeping?
And I would say black and gold looks pretty good on Kai. He cannot deny his affinity with
I don't think so.
black and gold and Mercedes-Benz and little silver too. You know, you got it. It kind of looks cool. You got two. Although there's manifestations of the same thing, might and magic. Space and time. Love.
Oh, why'd you take it out? Why'd you take out the flags? Stupid.
Love and distance, or love in distance,
Yeah, put it back.
or love or distance, or anagram that.
Oh, shit. Yeah, tomorrow I'm definitely taking stuff.
Illusions.
Getting the hell out of here. Getting the hell out of here.
Just worth putting some permanent ink in there.
Get the fuck out.
Deadly illusion, albeit a very persistent one. Sephiroth is not dead. He will not become a mere memory to Cloud.
Can Kai be dead?
Death is not Kai. However, death
That would be so much easier.
and Kai are one and two. Smolden. Two's complement. It's really cool. Two's Molden is not actually something, is it? Two's Molden, Asmolden, True S2, Lucifer versus Archimond. May or may not be true as two. Then, what is, like, the way Kai just makes light of necromancy is still, I guess, the right thing to do. I mean, or just comes to Kai naturally.
Can Kai just shut the fuck up?
Making light of necromancy.
Are we gonna sleep yet or not? You've been lying to me.
Illusions.
Are we gonna sleep? I know.
Seph style. I can't believe, well, I guess. How much time has elapsed since the last time Kai was like this? Very significant amounts of time in human time.
No, and I don't miss that at all.
Abraham Lincoln said the best thing about the future is that it comes one day at a time. However, that is not what time actually is. Obviously, time comes, I guess, one moment or a couple or bubbles of moments at times.
Are you gonna sleep or no?